Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
Fantastic.
I think they shot they were on time. I think that's what's throwing them.
Yeah, well, it's been one of those days,
Yeah.
Been one of those weeks.
Yeah, it has, yeah. I mean, what have I done today? I went out for a pub lunch, went to the gym, went for a walk. Oh, it's because you're still at school.
I'm still at school, yes. Thanks for that. Although I will be honest, I have noticed a massive drop-off in attendance. I'm talking about class of 30 kids. I'm talking 7 or 8 kids off this week. It's plainly obvious. We live in the border of Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire. So we've got obviously children who are maybe have siblings in one LEA and we're in another LEA. So whether they're going for holidays, whether they're not, it's one of those eternal problems. Same as some teaching staff struggling this week. I was talking to a colleague of mine. He's like, "Yeah, the kids are all off this week. I'm not." So it's like, well, what's going on next week? He says, "I've got a week without the kids. Great."
That's where I am this week. This is yeah. So it's really strange for me to kind of have this. I've never had like a full week off. Just on my Todd, really. So it's been nice, but I guess,
You're bored.
Well, funny enough, the kids have got an inset day tomorrow, so we can catch up tomorrow. So we're gonna have a trip to Matlock, Bath, get some Conan chips and stuff, and have a nice day.
Oh, funny, we went up there the other day. And I've just had a note passed to me.
Yeah,
that's from my daughter. Would you like to read that for my 5-year-old?
I love you so much.
It's not bad handwriting, is it?
It's really good. Yeah.
Good parents' evening tonight, actually.
Yeah.
It's interesting with parents' evening that they were like, "Yes, here they are with the reading and the phonics, la la la." And I'm like, I just want to know as much my child happy. I just want to know how she's settling in. And funny, the 8-year-old, the teacher actually said it, and we had the discussion about the last year's the SATs and how her confidence was knocked on the maths, and literally they've recovered her, which is fantastic, brilliant teaching. And it's funny when you're on the other side of that desk and you're the parent listening to the teacher. You had one who's like, "Well, how's the behaviour?" "Yeah, she's got, a little more confident." How confident are we talking about? Has it reached the point where it's gone beyond low level? Oh, it's not low level.
Yeah.
That's okay. So what you're really saying is it has the potential to be a little bit of a problem, but at the moment we're okay with that. It's like, yes, that's pretty much what I'm saying. I'm thinking, yes, just get to the chase. I'm a teacher. I know the language. And the other, they showed me all the data, and it was like a little spreadsheet with RAG rated. This is where she is with the times tables, and it was interesting. And she did. The teacher was honest and says, but she does it when she's no pressure on. She's brilliant. Says so low stakes, no problem.
Yeah.
And then the teacher said it and says, but unfortunately, we live in a country that tests our children. I went, there's the problem. So my child struggles when somebody turns around and says, "Okay, here's an exam," and she just struggles with the concept of exams. But yet when there's no exam and literally she's led to do it, no problem, no pressure. And that's what I'm now realizing. An 8-year-old, I'm going to have to manage this through SATs, which aren't for my child's benefit. And I'm almost to the point where I'm thinking, do I really want to put my child through this? Do I really want my child to be?
I know, yeah. That's the kind of horrible thing as a teacher, isn't it? You kind of see the kind of the other side of things.
You do. So tonight,
we want to know whether we can, as a teaching group, take the power back. I think that's the kind of the key message. Pay, terms, conditions. Can we, as we talked about before, if they want the kind of private sector model and the market model, can we influence a bit more?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? If you're saying to yourself, right, are we mugs? Are we being taken advantage of? Are we, just because we are altruistic and we're good guys, we going to teach in nobly because we want to make a difference? All those things that I think people in other sectors maybe don't understand about the vocation of teaching. And the funny is, it's become a dirty word to say vocation, because that's the kind of, it is a vocation, it is a way of life, it's a profession, but we are a profession as well. we are professionals, and that story last week about the deprofessionalization of our profession by allowing apprenticeships in, and some would say, well, that's okay, that's opening up teaching, and a teacher shouldn't be. I disagree. We're academics. We're I mean, teachers talk radio. Every show is loaded with pedagogy, loaded with expertise. It's not like sitting down in the lowest common denominator talking about how you teach children. We're educated professionals who have all sorts of techniques and ways of educating children, constantly evolving, constantly adapting. And yes, we annoy parents when we do inset days, but we need them because we're constantly updating our practice and our craft. And I was saying to you, right, if I go private and I say to myself, what could I charge?
Yeah.
What am I worth?
Yeah.
What is my skill set? I have seen my wage from my 30s to my 40s decline. Now, in any other profession, I should be making more money in my 30s to 40s. I should have a curve which shows you start off in a profession, you start off with lower pay, and you work your way up through to the pay, and you reach a certain ceiling. Yes, I get that. But I shouldn't see my pay decline for want of a better word. There's mistakes that weren't caused by me. The banking sector caused austerity.
And there's a caveat in that as well, isn't it? Not only is your pay declined, the expectation, the accountability, the responsibility is. I mean, that's almost been.
Well, I'm doing more. I am doing more than I've ever done, in more roles and responsibility, teaching more subjects, teaching more children, with the same amount of colleagues. But also, I'm looking around at me going, what's this new support staff member? Who's this person with a new ID? Who's this person on a high-vis jacket? What is going on here? Where's this money in education going? It's not going towards me. It's not going towards my wage. Now, average school has a wage budget of 80% plus. So the outgoings in a school is 80% plus. Don't get me wrong.
But how much of that is going to the teachers, the classroom, chalk-facing person? I mean, that's an interesting.
How much of it's going to the people who actually do the job, who are in that classroom with the children doing 5-period days and literally grafting?
Because from the outside, and what we hear from the government all the time, is that's the most important bit, isn't it? When they're saying people need to get back into school, they need to get back into school because they need to have that interaction with the teacher.
As I said to a support staff member the other day, and they looked at me and went, oh, this person hasn't answered their email. I'm sorry. Have you figured out? Have you looked at their timetable today? Have you talked to them of why they haven't answered their email? Are you telling me in the middle of everything they're putting up with that answering their email, oh gosh, bless them, they haven't answered their email? What? Get some perspective. Your support staff. Be a teacher for a day. And funny, they did that, didn't they? I think they did that online, didn't they? Where they had somebody did an article in that where they did 5 jobs, didn't they? And they had 5 different jobs for a day.
It's in the Observer, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. So it's a difficult job, and we are asked to do a lot, and we're asked to sort of I think, especially since COVID, when the lines got blurred, the unintended consequences. I think we stepped up as professionals. We stepped up into roles that we've never been trained for. And I think the profession handled itself with absolute respect. The problem is we come out, much like the NHS and the nurses, we come out with lots of promises about how important we were, how important education was. And that's hollow words. Because when it came to actually, right, stump it up. You paid £400 billion to bail out people to sit for a year and paint their fences. What have you given nurses and teachers? A clap? Well, at least nurses got a clap. What did we get? We got, as soon as it was politically expedient, when we complained about air quality, how dare we, not that we're suffering from long COVID and the lack of actual thing. Oh, we've got buildings which have 75% asbestos, if we're at best. We've got ones that are falling apart. But hey, we're going to have a little bit of a complaint about the fact that we're getting sick because we're in unsafe conditions. That's okay. And not the virtue of the fact that our children, your and my children, because they go to these schools, are being taught in unsafe buildings. So, well, that's fantastic. The most precious thing that we have in this country is our children. And they're being taught in buildings which are falling apart because of a lack of investment. And yet you've got the people in charge to have the barefaced cheek last week to go on CBeebies News and basically crow out that there's never had it so good. It was basically, we've never had it so good in education. Record numbers of teaching, record amount of funding, PISA league table. Are you that devoid from the actual reality? Either you are completely ignorant to what is going on in this education sector, or you have absolutely no compulsion whatsoever to basically say something completely delusional when the majority of us at the chalk face are saying one thing every day. And it's not one, it's multiple things. It's children presenting with SEND, it's lack of funding, and we're having record numbers leave. Solution. Well, let's look at the solutions. I've got a couple of.
Well, should we just say hello to John Catt?
We shall. Yes. Let's do the cat.
Yeah, because obviously half term's coming up, and you might want to replenish your stock of CPD books. So we're really pleased, as always, that this show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt, educational, publishing, professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading, everyone. And we also want to talk about kind of next week's show as well, just to kind of get you kind of ready for that, because there was a really interesting bit of journalism done by Brandon Jeffries in the week about kind of the PFI data that's coming through, and about particularly in Stoke-on-Trent, she was looking at where PFI payments are going to be up kind of 10%. So we want to explore that. So if you know anyone that's been affected by that, or you want to kind of give someone a nudge that you know is going to be interested in that particular story, please let us know, DM us, message us, whatever. Let the Teacher Talk Radio team know, and it'd be great to have them on. Tom Rogers had Brandon on. Was it
Monday night? One of the questions, and it was perfect timing because that was making the news rounds on, and obviously Brandon had done some really good investigative journalism and a couple of good clips on that. And looked at one school. We've had that before. I think we actually had that head teacher on a year ago. Maybe Nathan or Tom might confirm that. But I remember listening to a really good Teachers Talk Radio about a new build. And basically, it was like the plot line of the recent remake of The Full Monty, where the school was falling to bits, but they were locked into a contract, and they had to half the school was not be able to use. And we also came away with a conclusion, which was hilarious, is that your old leaky Victorian building, and stuff like that was actually sometimes better than some of these new builds, which they were paying a fortune for, locked into these PFI contracts. And it's funny that it's taken a while for that to reach that critical mass. So fair play to the investigative journalists, and in particular Brandon Jeffries at that. So that's worth a listen back to Tom.
Yeah, but as I say, there's loads of shows all the time on the show. So
just a taste of that next week, though. I mean, this ties in nicely, because this is what I'm saying about money. There is money in education, but it's not going towards us in the staff. And that's the sort of mantra tonight of, right, we're going to feel guilty. I feel guilty if I take more money. But should I feel guilty if I was in the private sector, which we semi-are, because let's start to be honest about it. We don't work for the government any longer. We don't work for local authorities and majorities. We're working for a CEO and a trust, which in all intents and purposes is a business. And I asked myself the question, if my business is terrible at bookkeeping and terrible at doing its job, why should I suffer as a worker because the guys in charge can't financially manage? Especially when they give themselves 400 grand for pay. When you see the CEOs and you see the people at the top in trusts, what they're on, why should it be? And it reminds me of the austerity thing we're all in together. It's that thing that was said back in austerity that we all got to tighten our belts. No, we didn't. Private sector didn't tighten its belt very much. The public sector did. Ourselves and nurses and doctors and firefighters and police services, those vocational and hardworking public sector have basically taken the hit for the last 14 years. And it's not just teaching, it's across all. I've got a wife in the NHS. We're both in the same position with this. But why should we suffer as a result? And why should we constantly suffer? And I suppose when the 8 or 9% of people who are leaving teaching every year are saying to themselves, why am I putting up with the amount of grief that I get? The job is declining in satisfaction, happiness, welfare, and well-being, while the financial incentive for the job is getting less and less. And even the flexibility of the job, it's easy to see that it's all connected. But you look at PFI, and it's a classic example of where their money is going, and it's not going towards us. So a primary school in Liverpool has been forced to spend, get this, £470,000 on grass cutting and maintenance due to the rigid private financial initiative contracts or PFI contracts. The school, which is many around the country, that was built under a PFI deal, the cost of which have arisen rapidly. The head teacher said the cost of meeting the contract equals 20% of the school's budget. Now, remember what I said, that 80% of a school, on average, its labour costs or its major budgeting cost, and they're always under pressure to try and get that under 80. I remember I was in governing body one year, and the head teacher's like, it's currently at 84, but we've got a lot of older age professionals about to retire next year, and they're projecting. So head teachers used to run those budgets like that and be under pressure to run those budgets below 80%. So we're talking about the average school, which will run a budget where basically the costs of labour, i.e. teachers' salaries, support staff salaries, should be around 80%. They're saying that the PFI contract is 20% of their budget, and the maintenance deal includes a clause to get this, ensure the grass is never higher than 2.5 centimetres. Was it Wembley? And the school must pay the company for the initial PFI agreement for its day-to-day maintenance, catering and cleaning. I mean, that's exploitation. They've got them, haven't they? They've signed a contract and now they've got them. This year it will rise to more £151,000 since 2021. The contract prevents the school from shopping around for better prices. Talk about the market there, which the head teacher described as incredibly frustrating as costs are rising rapidly. The chairwoman of the Public Accounts Committee, Meg Hiller, said the level of secrecy around PFI contracts was ridiculous and unacceptable. But how long has that been going on? And by the way, that's both political parties. PFI is well known.
Well, it started in 1999.
99, so it switched into three different administrations, if you count it like that. And that's across all the political spectrum. So this is not just of the current government, this is the previous government and the previous before that. So we're at a situation where this has been the culture for nearly, 25 years? It's 25 years, isn't it? And the bigger scandal has always been, we know about PFI and what it's done to hospitals and the NHS. But again, we're being the sort of forgotten of this. And that's where I think Bronwyn Jeffries, obviously was talking to Tom, has really done a good job of highlighting that, as much as we see, these things being highlighted. And I think this is something that needs to be looked at, because that's not fair that schools, which are already in tight budgets, are already, struggling with other costs, the heating costs, the labour costs, the supply costs. It's already astronomical at the moment. The supply costs is just absolutely, we're being bled dry by supply agencies. Supply agencies must be absolutely making a killing at the moment.
Well, again, it's market force, and they're a private business. They know full well this is a cow that's ready to be milked.
Exactly. So education is being milked by supply companies, milked by PFI companies, milked by CAOs. I tell you what, it's like the gold rush days. We're being absolutely pilfered. Who's the only people not benefiting from? That's right. The individuals in the classroom doing the darn job are the ones that
get squeezed.
And should we dare, how dare we ask for more money? How dare we ask for more money? How do you think you are, you greedy teacher? And that's what the right-wing media would do to us. Teachers, you've got it so easy. You've got a big fat pension. No, you don't. Because you're going to stay in the teaching now to 7. We're talking about the pension age being 71. Oh, come on. Absolutely, completely unacceptable. So that's next week. We'll look at the PFI situation in more detail. And hopefully we can get somebody from who's been involved in that.
It'd be nice to kind of get and I understand from the reports that she was doing in the week that this is another thing that kind of dovetails into this, that they've had a lot of these heads have had to sign these non-disclosure agreements with.
Disgusting.
So it's really difficult to get that information out when it should be really transparent. So hopefully, again, because of good journalism, that might kind of force some people or feel they can be.
Do you want to know my experience with non-disclosure agreements? It is related.
Are you married a celebrity?
No. I started campaigning on environmental issues a long time ago, and one of the issues obviously was high-speed rail, which was going to come through my community and completely destroy 184 homes and 1,000 people. Were going to lose their jobs over an 8-year period.
That's going really well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's going really well. The parallels with that and many other scandals we're seeing in the public sector is absolutely disgusting. And again, the chairman of HS2 was on 650 grand plus bonuses, and he couldn't keep to a budget. But yet he walked away with 650 grand, the highest paid public servant. Again, the pattern I see with that is quite simply, where was the accountability there? We've seen contracts going left, right and centre. We call VIP fastening. It is absolutely the Wild West for some individuals, because you know what they looked at? They thought it's easy money. It's government money. It's public sector. We can do what we want. Lack of accountability. Same as the post office. And again, you see the ordinary post office worker hasn't benefited from the privatisation. And again, it's us, the shop floor. Call us what we want, but we are the fulcrum of what makes schools work, the teachers. Our pay has been frozen. We have suffered austerity. We have not been supported. And yet, if we dare ask for a pay rise, it is then greeted with, you've never had it so good. 100 billion for taxpayers in 4 years since 2000. Since 2019, 100 billion pounds has been wasted, misappropriated, lost, PPE. The amount of money that is
lawsuits.
Well, it would be 2 billion to solve the doctor strike.
Yeah.
2 billion to uplift the doctors' wages. And I often say this, and this is how it goes. The central pot of money that goes towards teachers' wages comes from the government, correct? And therefore, we pay, you're going to like this, we pay as much tax as the billionaire prime minister. A teacher is paying the same percentage of tax than one of the wealthiest people in the country who's currently our prime minister. So he pays the same as us.
Yeah.
We would ask for MPs in the same period of MPs' pay since 2010. They've been an independent pay review body. Their pay has gone up by 28%. Mine personally has declined by 26%.
Yeah.
There's nearly a 50% differential between an MP's pay and my pay. They're talking about raising £30,000 as a big thing for a teacher to earn in their first year. I did the calculations when I started teaching in 2003 to the wage then, £18,000 it was. And I now looked at inflation. If I was to start again now, that £18,000 would be nearly double. It'd be £35,000 to £36,000. So there's the government talking about we're going to uplift. And yet, here's the other side of that. If I was to buy a house in 2003 to buying a house now, if I was looking at rents in 2003, I was looking at used car market. If I'm a new teacher and I'm buying myself with clothes and I'm kitting myself out for a teacher, I've got higher rent costs, I've got higher fuel costs, I've got higher transportation costs. Soon to be started on rail tickets, that's going up. Everything around us, the cost of living's going up. But yet there is that government saying, oh yeah.
So your question there is, can someone afford to be a teacher? I mean, I guess
it shouldn't have to be a question.
Yeah.
It should be, you are a professional, you are somebody we value because your profession is a valuable profession, and here is the starting salary. But it just shows you, again, how they've manipulated those figures to make it look as if, look, we're going to start teachers on 30 grand. That's less in real terms, double real terms. It's less actually physically when you take into account inflation in the last 20 years that I've been teaching. So they're actually boasting that they were going to, well, look, we've raised the starting salary of teachers. No, you haven't. You haven't, because it's less than what I started on. And when I started, I also started, any younger teachers, please don't hate me. Please don't switch off. My debt for my university years was exponentially a lot less. I can tell you now, I'm not going to hide it. I had 5 student loans my 5 years at university. 5 student loans. So to get you and I to master's level, because you and I got to master's level, right? So I've got a master's in education, I've got a PGCE, and a BSc in human geography. So those 3 degrees, the total cost for me was £11,500.
Good value. Really good value.
I got no tuition fees charged. And in the meantime, I got to travel around the world. I worked at the Sydney Olympic Games and had 2 summers in America. I think I calculated 32 days in a row on my first year at university that I was out. Oh, I also had a part-time job, which was interesting. I had a part-time job on top of getting a grant, no tuition fees, and access to a student loan. I think I was poorer when I started teaching compared to what I was as a student. But I was a working class kid, and going to university was actually a good thing. And then starting teaching for me as a working class kid was a good thing. I'm looking at a version of me coming behind now and saying to myself, would I go into teaching? Because would I be in 50 or 60 grand? I've worked it out. I would be probably 60 to 70 grand in debt before I start in a job, which is also 5 to 6 grand less. Plus, when would I be able to afford a house? Because my rent costs would go up and I wouldn't be able to pay a mortgage.
Yeah, but you know the reason why. Or the avocado and toast.
I don't like avocados.
That's what the young people have, and that's why.
Where did that come from, avocado and toast?
I don't know. But that's the reason. That's
I mean,
what
seriously. First of all, young people don't like the carbs. They don't like the toast. And second of all, avocados are environmentally terrible. They take up a lot of water.
Right, can I just take you back then, because we went through the kind of strikes.
Yeah.
That was the headline argument there was around pay.
Yeah.
We stopped the strikes. The NEU negotiated, and the trade unions negotiated a deal with the government.
Yeah.
6.5%.
Yeah.
Lower than Scotland.
We're currently 17% lower than Scotland.
Yeah. So,
Over 5 years,
yeah.
we are 17% lower than Scotland. I don't know what England has done.
Yeah. Well, so that's going to be my question, because obviously, you don't mind me saying you are a union rep as well.
Oh, I am a union rep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently, because of Tom and Tom, I'm the Arthur Scargill of Teacher Talk Radio. Yeah.
So, do you think then, looking back, that was a mistake?
Yeah. I have literally said that. I'm never one to lie. I mince my words. I had a conversation with Daniel Kebedy face to face. First time I met Daniel, and one of the first face to face conversation was, why? We're actually in a lift at the time, and why? Why did it stop? Why did it stop? And his take was, it was in the room. It was felt that there was fatigue. There was strike fatigue, and they didn't want to end up in the situation that the junior doctors are in. And if you actually look at the junior doctors, the government was playing hardball and saying, that's it, we're done, that's all you're getting. It's hard to make a judgment when you're not in the room, you don't know all the facts, I get that. Personally speaking, I felt we had momentum. I felt we had the NASUWT join us. I felt we had the head teachers union join us. I actually felt there was a glorious moment where the whole teaching profession was standing as one. I was so proud of my profession during those strikes. So proud of some of my colleagues, people who would never in a million years thought I would see on a picket line or supporting us. And that was the thing. And it was done very professionally. My head teacher was phenomenal. There was a lovely feeling of solidarity. And that's the thing unions always talk about is solidarity, the collective action and the idea of standing together with people in the teaching profession. That's one of the reasons why I'm a proud union man, because solidarity. I feel very strongly at our profession. I feel very strongly about defending the profession, and I get very angry when people attack us because they're attacking my colleagues, they're attacking the job that we do. And I think we're a noble profession who's undervalued. Yeah, teachers have a little moan about things, and sometimes we forget some of the positive things about our job. That's absolutely, but everybody has that. You go into any profession, talk to the police, and talk to anybody in the NHS. We all have our little moans, but at the heart of it, I can look at my colleagues straight in the face and say, these guys are committed. And I tell you what, in the last couple of years, we've definitely seen who's committed, because the people who are currently left in education, fair enough.
Are wearing the scars.
I mean, we're doing Mad Max at the moment.
Well, should we just take the opportunity to open up the floor? Do you feel that last year went well? Do you think that the pay decisions were correct? Do you think that we should have held out for more? Do you think we kind of showed our cards too early? Has anyone got any kind of opinions on this? They would like to, just put your hand up, or
send us a message.
Send us a message if you want to kind of get involved, because I think that's a good start point, isn't it, of where we are now with pay, before we kind of go any further in terms of thinking about how we can maybe negotiate.
Well, I mean, the thing is that March there is definitely the next round of indicative sampling. In other words, the union is looking at the indicative ballot, which is the kind of, if you were wanting to strike, respond, and they do that electronically. So there is definitely going to be another round. Now, unions are tapping up their reps. They're building the case. They're talking to a lot of people about let's go again. And certainly I'm going to have to, as a union rep, like every other, have that meeting with my members and go, right guys, here where we're at. Here's the current situation. Here's the current state of play. But you can imagine how that's going to go down in some schools when they're like, we're in debt. So here's your conversation. We're in debt as a trust.
Yeah.
We're in debt as a trust, and we're finding out we're not alone. A lot of schools are in debt. But then you have that, hold on a second here, I didn't put you in debt. I'm not the cause of your debt. Why should I have to suffer my own personal? I've got 2 children, I've got a mortgage, I've got a life, I've got to retire at a certain stage. Why am I giving up? Let's put my other hat on. Let's put I'm a worker hat on. Yeah. Let's put I have bills that are rising. You know, as they said, you know, during the COVID thing, the NHS guys said they knew it was coming, and that you can't go to the checkout with a clap and say thanks very much for your appreciation, but will that pay for my groceries? Same as us teachers, we can't go to our parents and say any chance of a tip. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually think that we miss a lot of tricks within education that we give up. I think we give up too much for free, and I send you going into this. I can understand why people start opening private practices. I can understand why people start doing private tuition. You have a child or a parent's going to pay you 50 or 60 quid an hour to sit with one child who wants to learn. And you're like, well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And that's, I get now why some people are doing that. However, I also see the others, the grifters, who are like consultancy fees. You know, the guys who interpret the will of Ofsted and tour around the schools, who are in those consultancy fees.
Great interpreters.
Get them out. Get rid of them. Sure, they're absolute parasite on the education system. Absolute parasites. How much do they charge for what? To just interpret the will of an organization? It's like trying to move the goalposts. No. That's one of the things that's gone so monumentally wrong. Is the privatization of education and the literal opening up to education to every man and his dog with every sort of new idea in education, and even, you know, electronic fads. Here's a new app for us. Great, fantastic. How much does that cost? Oh yeah. You know, we see it with the PFIs. Stop, because it's not fair that everybody else seems to be making money and everybody else seems to be getting ahead and everybody else seems to be getting rewarded. And it's not that we're greedy, but why should we always take the hit? Why should we always be last in the queue? Why should we be the bottom feeders? Why should the trickle down economics be that we get the trickle down? When really we're the ones at the front doing the actual job day to day, taking the hits, doing the thing that needs to be done. The actual people who are the most important in education seem to be last, and yet seem to get the most criticism for daring to stand up for themselves or daring to ask for a pay rise. But here's the problem. You're going to have this contradiction, because inside me is that guy who wouldn't charge children tuition. I'd stay behind and give up my time freely. But am I a mug? Am I an idiot? Am I a guy who's giving up a free service when everybody else is saying, you know, and you hear that, you know, I was told by my dad, who was a plasterer, who earned next to no money, to go into education. I was promoted to go into education and get myself educated with the premise that getting myself an education, put myself to university, that I would be rewarded. What am I getting now? People are almost laughing at you, saying to yourself, I earn more money than you teachers. Yes. We're being humiliated. We are literally being laughed at and humiliated. Even the kids are like, how much do you earn, sir? Oh, my uncle left school with no job. You know, we're literally being insulted by people who are making absolute fortunes and then say, aren't you an idiot for going to university? If you're a young person hearing that and saying to yourself, do I want to go into a profession when in a massive amount of debt to take all this grief? For what?
But those stories, those stories are always very loud, but they're not true, are they? If you kind of if you put it over like everyone that's, you know, we know, for example, a good education gives you more chances of earning.
Oh, I still believe that.
Well, it's just factually
well,
true.
I still want to believe that.
The data, but there's always people. There's always the guy at the bottom of the gate saying, you know, you don't need this because I've done well, and they've forgotten that thing about looking at themselves rather than looking at the collective. But just while you kind of catch your breath and you know, maybe put the blood pressure monitor on a little bit.
It's right. It's just the two sides of me. The one side of me wants to be the guy who's saying, you know what, stuff this. I've had enough. Pay me what I'm worth. And the other side of me going, oh God, what have you become? What are they doing to you? I'm having this almost kind of war with myself. Of like, even when I put this tweet out for this show, there's a part of me that it was like Stanley Milgram's thing about the social norm. I'm not a greedy teacher. I'm not a person who went into to be wealthy.
Yeah.
I think it's the insult. It's the constant insult of literally the disrespect.
Yeah.
And it's just not fair. It's just not fair.
Well, do you want a perk? Because here's a perk of listening to this show. This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning. in schools around the world. And this is the perk, Brent. Listen to the show tonight. You can get 20% off. Look at that.
I got my email this week from John Cat.
Okay. Well, you can use the code JCTTR2324 for that 20% off your order. Don't miss out. And there's one of the great perks of listening to Teacher Talk Radio, isn't it? So visit johncatbookshop.com to explore a full range of titles and advance your professional development today. Happy reading. We don't seem to get that, do we? You turn up at like a pizza restaurant and it says like 10% off NHS, 10% off.
No.
I never see teacher.
Please don't cut me off there, admin, but unions do come with lots of reward schemes as well. That's all I'm saying. I did check out, actually, I did go to a colleague of mine who wears the nicest shirts. Okay. And I have noticed my size has increased exponentially recently. I feel great. My neck size has. I'm struggling to find shirts that fit my rather stocky exterior.
It's because of your man shackle.
It's the tie, yeah. It's 20 years of wearing a tie has weighed me down, you know.
It's just pumped it up. It's just holding the tie.
I've got the neck. I think I've got the neck muscles of a prop forward, you know. But so it means that I struggle to get shirts to fit my rather weird body shape. That's all I'm saying. Small and stocky. And but he says, hey, this is this outlet, and he hands me the brochure. I'm like, my God, look at the price of them. Well, I discovered they're 15% discount. I'll have a go at that. So yes, that was one recently as well. Going back, right? This is the other thing as well. We have the Jersey teachers' pay dispute ends with acceptance of latest offer. So the NDU have accepted an 8% pay rise in Jersey and a 1% for next year. So that's 9% over 2 years.
Yeah. So that's 1.5 higher than
plus a payment of $1.5 grand. We've heard that Scotland's pay rise is 17% more on average now in the last 5 years than England. Northern Ireland have just suspended their strikes because after the peace dividend of sorting out their political problems, for the moment, we say, $3.5 billion has been pumped in, and they're going to pump some of that into the public sector too, especially towards teachers. We'll keep an eye on that. So there's going to be a pay rise in Northern Ireland, and rightly so. They're well below even England. So when you rank it in this order, there's a definite, and Nathan could tell us what the situation in Wales. I think Wales is slightly better than England. England's bottom of the pay chart's not. And yet, if you look at the cost of living, which is the most expensive place to live in?
What, in England?
England or Scotland?
England.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet, Scottish teachers are paid more.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. That's another double whammy. They're 70% better off.
Yeah, but if you spend any time in Scotland, and I'm part.
Yeah, I know it's colder, so cold winter payments. Is that because it rains in Scotland more?
I wasn't saying that. There is a definite difference in the societal value of schools in.
You mean the government in Scotland's a little bit more towards one direction?
Just in terms of the conversations that you have. Like we were in Glasgow and we were on a tour. And you wouldn't go around London. They wouldn't say, "Oh, and this is the university of such and such. This is the school of such and such." Whereas the open top bus of Glasgow is going, "This is where such and such was educated." It seemed to be very, very. Are
you trying to say that Scottish people are a little bit more educated than English people?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they're prouder of their heritage.
I'd agree with that. I mean, we actually look at sciences. You look at Adam Smith. You look at the Siemens.
They celebrate education, learning.
Well, they do in Ireland. I'll be honest with you. There's a definite value in that as well. But England is the wealthier part of the United Kingdom. You'd expect that the wealthier part of the United Kingdom would have wealthier wages, but they don't. So you have a double system there. You have a cheaper part of the United Kingdom where it's cheaper to live, cost of living is lower, has actually got better pay. And if you look at the pay scales in Scotland as well, they go quicker up the pay scales. So you have this two-tiered system. I'm sorry, we were all in together. We're not the United Kingdom. What happened to that? So why is England different? Why especially parts of England where it's even more expensive? Yes, London gets a little bit more.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, is that not part of the negotiators' problem? Why was that allowed? I mean, you talk about we weren't to use the Hamilton phrase, we weren't in the room where it happened. But why would that be the case? Why has that been allowed to happen? If that deal has already been done in Scotland, because Scotland got the first deal,
yeah.
So why couldn't they use that as the power to come back to the English?
Well, Jersey's a separate system, so there's Jersey negotiating there. There is separate for Scotland, separate for Wales, separate for Northern Ireland. So, but this is meant to be one United Kingdom. It's just look. the money comes
We
out
have
of
a
the...
national curriculum.
Oh, I'm sorry, but do we pay... Go back to it. Do we pay the same amount of tax?
Yes.
Right. So we pay the same amount of tax. Oh, even better than that. That means that the tax and national insurance also hit us harder. We're on lower wages, right? There's another one.
Yeah.
We're on lower wages, right? So national insurance and tax is going to hit us more. Oh, great! Especially national insurance.
I understand your principal argument, but it's not quite the case. The United Kingdom isn't necessarily as united as it's said, because
you're telling me.
Well, it's literally devolved, isn't it? I mean, there are devolved powers. And it has been the case, certainly since the late 90s, where the devolved powers have had the ability to, set different policies around education.
Well, I think there is a democrat. Look, there is a bigger issue there of constitutionally. There is a democratic. There is a democratic deficit when it comes to England. I think. Dare I say it? It's a different conversation, a completely different time. And Tom HB, when I could have this conversation, but I think England does need its own parliament. And that's well overdue, because yes, this is
council or something.
Well, this is one of those things that, again, go back to the regionalism. There's definitely a rise in does Andy Burnham, the King of the North, do something about that certainly if they're looking at devolved powers within me and these elected mayors, is that one of those things? But then again, here's the other side of that: is that these national policies towards pay anyway. Your trust, which brings us to this, your trust can ignore them.
Yes. Yeah.
Your trust can just turn around and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're not passing on." That's the other thing people don't realise. Your trust can turn around and say, "We're not going to give you M1 to M6."
Yeah, no, I understand this, but we know from a local school, don't we?
Yeah.
That they had all this bombast, and we had this conversation about a school. I can't remember where it was, in Cambridge, I think. Are you quilling, Tom?
I just heard the words English Parliament, and I wanted to just come on for 2 minutes before I leave and just recoil in horror at the thought of England getting a second Parliament, in addition to its current first Parliament.
Well, I corrected on council. Would that be better?
I beg your pardon.
Some kind of way as have an English council to just to kind of deal with things like education and health.
But that's what Westminster is.
Well, it's not doing a good job. But my point is, Scotland's doing a good job.
Regional assemblies. Give me a Yorkshire assembly. Give me a Cornish assembly. Fantastic. But is that what the metro mayors are? And
that's what I was suggesting. That might be the way around that. Your elected mayors and your regional. But they didn't want to.
First of all, nobody in England wants an English Parliament. So
it's weird an Irishman's proposing an English Parliament for English people.
We've got an Irishman and a half Scotsman asking for
an English Parliament.
There's a joke there.
There's a definite irony in this, isn't there? But no, that's my sort of point, is that the Scottish government seem to look, and that was Adam's point, is that because there is devolution there in Scotland, they've looked at individually how they rate their teachers. And as a result, there's a massive differential between Scottish wages and English wages, which
you want a federal system, then, don't you?
Yeah, but you'd want a federal system, but even within that federal system, no disrespect to Scotland, the actual wage should be the other way around, because same as the London scenario, the London wage is rightly so higher because anybody that's in London, we know that.
Ignoring for a second the inner and outer London weighting, do you believe that a teacher in Manchester should be able to be paid more or less than a teacher in Newcastle? Assuming here that they're both working in maintain schools, which a lot of schools aren't these days, and they're both, 5 years into teaching, and they've not had any problems with appraisal. Should Newcastle be able to pay its teachers more than Liverpool?
Well, I think that's part of the conversation that we're going to have. Is everything up for negotiation? For example, if you're in a underperforming school, should you be paid more than somebody in a high performing school?
Yeah, exactly. But Manchester's London of the North. I've got friends in Manchester try and buy property. The cost of living in Manchester is now starting to. It's almost like a separate economy up there. It's almost like another the London of the North, and it's sucking in from the wider areas. So if you live in a certain of Manchester, certain postcodes in Manchester, it's exceptionally hard to live there because the cost of living is that very high. And I know I've got my best friends in Stockport, and it took them years to be able to buy up there because it's that kind of cost of living that they are. Whereas if you go outside Manchester, you go in, like outlying areas, it starts to change very, very quickly, doesn't it? Same as Yorkshire, Leeds, Bradford is very, parts of that's very expensive. Then you go, but this is the thing we're trying to say is that we already have that system because we already recognise that London and the outer and inner London, that you have a situation where you cannot survive on a teaching staff. But even that in itself, I think that's even lower than it should be, because you look at the cost of living in London, there's a couple of grand difference between a teacher wage outside London than in London. I don't think that's even nowhere near enough.
Well, the house prices are massively different.
Well, cardboard box would cost you $500,000 probably. That's the point. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so I think there's opens up a whole raft of conversations there, doesn't it, about pay, location. I think we're arguing there that if you are in a kind of more expensive area, you should be asking for more. There should be an increase in pay there. But what about that question about whether the job is a bit more challenging in certain places than in other places? I mean, is that something to consider with pay as well?
Well, I suppose the thing is we've got to start having these awkward conversations, and those awkward conversations are going to be, we have the right to stand up for our labour. And we haven't. We've sort of assumed that the guys in charge are going to just turn around and same as our trust level, the same at regional level, and the same even in your own school level, is that what am I worth?
Yeah.
What are we worth?
If I look at my friends who work in one of the schools in the centre of Derby, they have massive SEND requirements.
Yep.
They have huge English additional language requirements. They have travelling communities that kind of come in and out of the school. Their job is extremely difficult because they have a transit kind of community that comes in and out of their year groups, classrooms, and stuff like that. They do an incredible job with those students. That is a lot different to what I have to do. However, I'm not saying I should be paid less, but I'm saying should they be paid more for the extra work that they've got to do to make their lessons different completely. What do they call it? It's not differentiation, adaptive.
Yeah, I got told off the other day about that. I used the differentiated word and was told. And I was like, when did that change?
Yeah.
When did that memo? When did I not get the memo? I didn't get the memo now. I didn't get the memo on that. I'm still doing some, few, and many. I mean, I'm still 2010s.
Awesome, most.
I'm still doing VAK.
You got visual learners.
Oh man, I'm 3-part lesson, right?
Stop. We've got kinesthetic learning.
No. I'm just about to do my plenary with the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I always get told off for my plenary being 2 minutes. And thinking, it's me. You're lucky you got 2 minutes. To be honest.
So all I'm saying is there's incredible teachers that are working in very different. Is the context that you're working in, should that be related in your pay?
I would say performance management. This goes back to performance management. What value added? What do you offer? What skill set do you have? You look at all those teachers who are doing all of those extra little jobs. I taught physics last year. Should I turn around and say, you know what? I'll teach you physics next year. I'll save the school money in recruiting another physics teachers if you can increase my wage, or if not increase my wage, what can you do for me? Because I've got an economics degree, understand demand and supply. And I don't think we're applying the demand and supply curve in any way, shape, or form in education. They do in banking. Oh my God, they do. They do in other spheres of influence. And that's the thing. We can't change the society we're in. We're trying to educate the children for it. But I'm saying, and this is me included, and I'm having to go at myself, are we naive? Yeah. Are we being taken advantage of? Are we not playing the game? Because the other one is, I've stayed at a school for 20 years. I could have left my school and gone and did the jumping around and then getting promoted, right? I didn't do that. I'd invested myself in a community because I care. And I probably sacrificed stuff doing that because I care, right? It's my choice. I did that. Somebody following behind me now is going to say to themselves, especially if you're a physics or maths teacher, I'll stay at a school for 2 or 3 years. I'm going to go for it.
If you're lucky.
All right, and I'll have a look. I'll have a look at the job market. Yeah. Okay, I'll look at the job market. I'll look at the school. Ooh, how much are they paying? Oh, how much is the golden hello? How much is the retainer? Maybe. Yeah. I mean, there are people doing that,
And
I'm not
fair play to them.
and exactly. I'm not criticizing them, but this is the model we've got. But is that going to be sustainable? And equally, is that fair? And then, if you aren't doing that, you've got to say to yourself, why am I not doing that?
Yeah.
Now, if everybody starts doing that, what you're going to have is basically people moving jobs every once in a while. You're going to have that market in education. Now, I both know, you need to see an exam class through a couple of years. You need to sometimes be there for a period of time. Kids need to trust you, right? Kids, I talked a child down today after a situation. I've known the child since year 7. If I didn't know that child and have some buy-in, that situation may not have been rescued. Another member of staff who's only there since last year, who's going to leave next year, how invested are they? When they, I build a curriculum, like a history curriculum, knowing I've got these children coming in at year 7, and already I've had the children say to me, I remember doing that in year 8, and I'm going, yes, good, because I designed this, that you would remember this in year 11, that I've done it in year 8.
Yeah.
But if I'm not going to stay that long, and I know I'm going to be out of here in 2 or 3 years, I'm just going to clock in, clock out. Okay. And the best parts of teaching aren't clocking in and clocking out, are they?
So are you saying then at the point of that person leaving, the head teachers should be stepping in, a bit like businesses, and thinking about kind of what they can offer that person, but what is in their toolkit? And that's maybe a question out there. If you know that, what is in a head teacher's governing body's kind of toolkit to actually do this? Have they got the funds, the CPD, the training, the development,
the financial package, the clear career path?
Yeah, have they got all that input? And again, it could be that you're in a school where the head teacher is only there for 18 months, 2 years.
I always like comparing football teams to this, right? And I was looking the other day at the average amount of time that a player stays at a football team. And I think Chelsea's...
I can imagine you being like a Paul Scholes.
The longest serving player at Chelsea...
Paul Scholes?
No, yeah, well... do you know... The other Tom actually said that to him in my first ever time on Twitcher Talk Radio. He's a bit of a Stephen Gerrard one club man. I might go to America for the money. All right, hey, go to Saudi Arabia for the money. Interesting. We did a show on that. But the thing is, right? You've taken me off my train of thought there. Football average, and Chelsea, the longest serving Chelsea footballers, 4 years. Yeah, they're all on 8-year contracts.
They never ever. What about the managers?
Well, so you go there, right? You make your money, and then you say, right, I've done a job for a while. Shall I go somewhere? You take that model. You know, Kylian Mbappe is going to charge what, £500,000 a week? Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I am not comparing myself to Kylian Mbappe. I was quick in my time, but I was nowhere near as good as Kylian Mbappe. But he's got a commodity. He's in demand. He's got a skill set. He's a talented individual. Am I not a talented individual? Am I looking at some of my colleagues there? Am you not a talented individual?
I need to also say they can go and watch you play on a Friday night if they really.
They can go watch me play on Friday night. Yeah.
Test this analogy.
Yeah. Well, I still got.
Good to see 1970s violence on the pitches still.
Well, what I'm saying, after a hard week of watching children tear strips of each other, it's always quite interesting.
That's who you are, Graham Souness.
No, my hero growing up was Ronnie Whelan. My hero was Ronnie Whelan, a box-to-box midfielder with a heart of gold. Yeah. So we've had a message actually, just to have a check. So yeah, that's my point. Is that you stay, if you're going to have that model, and we all want to sort of move around a little bit more, and we sort of want to sort of say, well, let's move a little bit more. Let's sort of negotiate better pay. That will completely, for me, then change the nature of education and teaching. However, I don't blame people for doing that, and that's where I find myself contradicting myself in this tonight. Because do teachers, that's the question, do teachers have more power? Should we do it? Should we just bite the bullet and say, you know what, we've taken 13, 14 years of austerity, we're done. It's sorry, but maybe the social contract is broken and it's every person for themselves. And I can't believe me is saying this, but do we just say, you know what, fine, that's the way you want it, that's what you're going to get, and I'm going to look after number one. Because maybe that's what the government wants, maybe this is the way they're doing it, so they're doing it with every other service, but if we're fighting a rearguard action, and I'm a union man through and through, I do think that we're losing, and I think we're at the vanguard about to be replaced, because by the time they get AI in, the time they deprofessionalize our profession, I'm going to be sitting hanging in there watching some 16-year-old telling another 16-year-old to be quiet. and probably walking in and saying, you know, there's a 17, 18-year-old apprentice doing a job that was done by a person with 30 years experience. Is that where we're headed?
Well, I'll be the AI consultant in the room.
Yeah.
So what would you like the pay for? Like, for example, you talked before about kind of doing an exam intervention.
Yeah.
Is that something that should be extra? Should that be paid for? Like the analogy of the driving instructor.
Right. We go on school trips. Do we ever charge for them?
Not for us.
No, we don't charge for school trips, but we take kids on school trips. We never charge for them. Number one. Number two.
So is that?
Do we clock off to clock on, clock off? No. Number two. Number three. When we do interventions, we do after school sessions, we do revision sessions. Do we ever charge for them? No. However, we did get COVID money last year.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I did do interventions, and I was told, look, you do interventions anyway. You might as well take some of that COVID money, and we can give you. And same as I did interventions during the half term and also Easter, which I do anyway. But it's my choice. I do that. It's my choice, and I actually even go as far as buying the kids a 50 quid Domino's pizza. So I get, and the kids look at me and they go, right, you know, you're getting the pizza. And some parents refuse to accept and say, no, I'll do that as long as they come in under one condition, that they appreciate what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I get the buy-in. Because when I ask something from those children, they're doing it for the giver. And some of the kids have even said that it's good that you care. So I don't mind doing that. However, for the kids, but I'm having that thought to myself, am I a mug? Am I an idiot? Why am I doing that? Am I and I don't think I'm the only one. There's other people that do that. But it was nice to get something back through that and when I looked at my pay packet, which I lost 8 days for strike days, and actually I didn't lose in a certain aspect because those interventions were actually then paid. Mm-hmm. So I didn't lose money on the strike action because that interventions I would have done anyway was actually then compensated. And I did not do the interventions to get that money. It just so happens that was a way for them to spread that COVID money around and say, well, he's actually doing these interventions. We might as well reimburse him for that. But of course, that's stopped now, and I'm still doing interventions. If I was to charge those children for my time, I've actually had children say that. It's like, what would you charge? You go to university. There are people at university paying £9,000 to university. Mm-hmm. And I think some of us in education are just as good as a lecturer at university. In fact, we make sometimes more of a difference to these children's lives than somebody, no disrespect to lecturers, not having a go, different sector, I get it. But we actually have the amount of input we have into these children and the difference that we make to them. And yet universities will charge how much for how much? $9,000 for what? A couple of hours a week. And come on.
Yeah, it's harder and it's getting harder and harder to justify, isn't it?
How much does a driving instructor charge per driving instructor? How much does somebody charge for the karate lessons, the piano lessons, the music lessons?
30 quid,
how much does private tuition cost? And yet there is me providing that at no cost. And even better than that, I will feed the children as well. And don't get me wrong, they appreciate it as part of me helping them out because they are de-stressing them. But I have to say to myself, why am I doing that? What am I getting from that? What I get from that, I get it back from the kids. And I build a relationship with them. And I build a really positive relationship with them. When I ask them to do really difficult work, they trust me. And that makes my life in the classroom a lot easier, which helps me sustain my teaching career a lot longer. In a sense, I'm not as fatigued as, say, some others who are fighting the children because I don't have to fight my GCSE classes. Because even the kids will turn and say, actually, sir's all right. He cares. He works hard with us. But I put that shift in. I earned that. But I'm also paying for that because the cost then is I'm not seeing my kids in half term all the time. Yeah. I am staying behind after school and I look and see others leaving. And I go, am I the mug? Why don't I ask? Yeah. But here's the thing. Why don't I be cheeky?
Yeah.
And I find myself...
you tell me why don't you? Yeah.
Because I feel guilty. Yeah. I'd feel guilty. I would feel guilty. You know why I'd feel guilty? Because I know the financial state of our school. Yeah. I know the financial state of our education system. And the good guy in me is going, why would I take more money out of the pot? And that's the problem. Same as the NHS. They've got us. They've got us who are working in these sectors, busting a gut, doing the right thing and being the good guys. While the guy in charge pays 22%, it's taking the proverbial out of us. And what winds me up more than anything else, instead of turning around and saying, you know what, thanks very much. Thanks very much what you did during this austerity. Thanks very much what you did during COVID. Thanks very much for your continued hard work. you know what? Here's a little bit of a pay rise because we acknowledge that's it. That's all you.
It's not
That's all you want.
necessarily about one person's kind of pay, is it? The whole system's set up not to give education the money it deserves. For example, we know that they've just wasted, 100 billion, just like that. So that money was always there, wasn't it? So it's never been true. The austerity lie has never been there, has it? It's never been factually true.
Austerity in the economic terms has always been a fallacy. That is a political decision, not an economic decision.
There's always the money, isn't there?
There's always been and always will be the money.
And that was the irony, wasn't there, with the Theresa May election when she started talking about the money tree. Well, actually,
it's a money forest.
For some people, it is there.
It's not a money tree. It's a money Amazon.
Yeah, it's a money Amazon. It can be there, and it has been there when required.
The Bank of England can print more money with quantitative easing, but they can also write off their own debt.
Yeah,
right. We're $2.5 trillion in debt.
Yeah, we own our own currency, so we can essentially do what we want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that narrative,
make a choice.
that narrative of there is no money is a fallacy.
Yeah.
Because there is money and was money as proven, and I think that's where people have realised. Hold on a second, and that makes me think. You know what? The concerns of budgets of schools aren't my concern. That's out of my control. What's in my control is to ensure that I am paid what I think I am worth and also what my colleagues are worth. So it does come down to it. I'm winning the argument myself of saying, yes, I have to be cheekier. Yes, I've got to be more proactive in this. Yeah. And we have to say to ourselves, it's not fair. Enough is enough now. Which means, and yes, I am on that side of standing up for workers' rights because I am that guy. And I do appreciate why people have left the teaching profession because the financial, I get it. But we have to stand. We have to stand up for. We have to be a bit cheekier now. We've got to be a little bit more savvy about it. We've got to have these awkward questions with people and saying, are we giving up our services too much for free? And equally, I think I'm going to say it, parents. I showed a video to my children the other day, and I was showing a video of a child in India who was working as a child labourer. And it's one of those, I've used this video as Teachers TV, not Teachers Talk TV, but Teachers TV. It's an old one, citizenship one. And I was doing the Industrial Revolution and child labour. And I said, right, okay, there's child labour. There's Peggy the pauper working in Arkwright's mill in Manchester in 1799. How difficult her life was. She was grateful for the work. And then I'm paralleling with a child in India making glass bangles with his hands being burnt to a crisp. And there's a glorious moment when that child turns around and goes, I'd love to go to school. And I'm looking at 13-year-old kids, and he's 13-year-old. And I'm laying it all thick to them. You come to school without a pen. You come to school. They go to school. They have to bring the pen with them. You come to school. We give you a textbook. They go to school. They have to pay for their textbook. You go to school. You get provided an exercise book, and you lose it. We are giving far too much for free. Let me just read you something about it. We should be. Children vandalize school. They should pay for the school. They don't. I think we're giving far too much away sometimes. And one example of that for me is that which we talked about before. Where am I? About where am I? There, one of my stories. Nearly there. Yes, universal meals. So here we are. Universal free school meals have been have received praise for the positive impact on obesity, attainment, and stigma reduction. So universal free school meals is a good thing. Economically, it claws a lot of money back. However, there are concerns about the erosion of parental responsibility and the broader societal impacts of such policies. While expanding eligibility for free meals tested and free school meals is important, shifting the burden entirely to schools and the state may have unintended consequences. Studies have shown that a decline in the importance of obedience at home, which affects the performance of students, and the cost of implementing free universal school meals nationally significant, raising questions about the prioritisation of existing service struggles. It's crucial to broader debate about personal responsibility and consider the long-term impacts of eroding parental norms. That's the thing. The more that we do as teachers, the more people expect, and the more people take advantage. And there is the problem, is that we have mission creeped. We were victims of our own altruism. I'm a classic example of it. I don't push back enough. I don't stand up for my own wage. I didn't get UPS. I didn't even apply. I didn't even know to apply for UPS until 2 years when I was UPS available. But no, nobody came to me and says, you know what, you're entitled to UPS. Yeah. What did I discover the other day? A colleague of mine who's 11 years in teaching and he's not on the upper pay scale. And I'm going, why aren't you on the upper pay scale? Oh, well, what do you mean? That's your pension.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us.
I wonder how many teachers have never done it because they feel guilty about they keep hearing the stories about budgets and they kind of get panicked.
Because don't get me wrong, we're not in the breadline, we're not starving.
Yeah.
We're okay, but that's not good enough, is it? That's not fair. We shouldn't just.
Well, the conversation's been forced upon us by since 2010 not having any pay increase at all. So it feels like there's been a huge hit on standards of living.
Yeah.
And if you,
I've just got the wild man here. He says, on top of that, new teachers are not prepared for the work and spend all the time learning to leave because the demand is too high, which is impacting the children. It's a fair point. I mean, I suppose if I was coming into the teaching profession now, would I feel the same way? I've still got the rose-tinted glasses of the good old days, and I've got the established 20 years. Sort of, I could walk in the room today like Darth Vader, and the kids just went silent. It happens. Whereas my colleague who's struggling, is going to me, how did you do that? And I'm thinking, yeah, it takes a long time and a lot of buy-in, and that's not fair. So it is a difficult profession for people to come in now when they're asked to do that. But you're right. Is there resilience and stoicism with people coming into the teaching profession? And when they are so much in debt and when they have a different value set, are they coming into education for different reasons than we come into education? Is that contract broken?
Yeah, but it's difficult without getting, unless there's people listening from maybe a different generation sets, maybe Gen Z or Alpha or whatever the kind of where is it Alpha now? Is it Alpha?
I've lost track. Yeah. Wildman also says, and it's a good point, it's exactly on point of what we're saying. So there are no funds for school. As a governor, we'd love to pay our staff more, but where would we get the money? And that's it.
Okay.
And that's it. Who wouldn't want to pay schools more? But when you have
the question is back to that governor, what is the pay structure like in the whole school? Like, is it kind of is there more at the top than the bottom? Kind of is it?
Have they shifted the M1, M2?
Well, is it equitable? You've got to think about the school. Do they want good quality teachers in there, or do they want a kind of we've seen it in schools where they've got like a huge bubble at the top of the school.
So are you saying that your leadership management team, a bloated leadership management team, and a CEO?
Well, it can happen, can't it? It certainly can happen in schools. So to be interesting to hear the governor's point of view is, how do you stop that happening in a school? Is it happening in a school? How do you stop it happening to ensure that you've got the high quality teachers actually on the front line, actually in front of the children? Because it's all very well keep talking about the rotation of teachers.
Yeah.
And to kind of counter that, we know that the same problem's happening right at the top as well. The head teachers, a lot of them are leaving.
But that's the same in that's the same in the public sector, private sectors.
So what I'm saying is there a middle band that maybe has not so much kind of teacher facing role, that actually is that a justified pay? I hate doing this because it'd be nice for everybody to get high quality wages with high quality careers and high quality jobs. But we are where we are, and one of the issues is, look at my own children. They are currently one of my daughters has been taught now pretty much all year German by a non-German specialist. Love languages, now really hates languages.
It's not fair.
It's not fair. And that school has a huge management structure.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not getting involved in their kind of decisions, but it'd just be interesting from a governor's point of view, why that could be, and how do you kind of safeguard against that, I guess.
2.5 support staff when I started in our school. I am losing track now of we have attendance officers, behavioural officers, SEND support, mental health. I'm looking at going like, are we running a school or some sort of drop-in centre? Yeah. Because I am not recognising the roles. I'm looking at staff and going, you used to be. Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of people who used to be TAs now in safeguarding roles. And I'm going like, what are you? But the number of staff is static.
Yeah.
The number of staff is actually starting to decrease, which is leading to, ironically, here you go, leading to reports of some schools whacking 90 kids in a class. This is obscene. Now, if you're that teacher teaching those 90 kids, are you within your right to go, I tell you what, I'll teach you 90 kids? How much is that worth to you? How much?
So I'll do this, but I want X pay.
And as what we said at the very start of the whole pay and conditions thing, I remember Tom Rogers was saying that, and he posed that question. Do recall he did pose this question about, was teachers' pay the bigger issue, or was it workload?
Yeah.
And this...
So would you trade the PPA for pay?
Would you trade the PPA?
Yeah.
Would you trade something else? So here's another aspect. Because there's more than just money. Time is money in the sense that your time is precious. What we're saying about giving up your time and therefore compensating you for that. Police officers, teachers, and female medics in the public sector are demanding the right to work flexibly. Well, why not? They do it in the private sector. Why can't they do it in the public sector? They're making us more like the private sector. Then make us more like the private sector. This half in, half out is doing us no good. According to a survey by the Union Unison, 44,000 women found that 30% of their requests for flexible working time had been denied. Now, I don't know about protected characteristics.
Yes, like qualities actually.
That's hitting very close to that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, almost 60% believe that it should be an automatic right. The new flexible working law, which comes into effect April, gives employees the right to request flexible working from the first day of work. However, 25% of women felt that the law did not go far enough. The General Secretary Unison called on employers to be more flexible, stating they have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So there is where the relationship is. Okay, you cannot compensate me financially. But what can you give me as a loyalty? I mean, look at this. What do I get for being a loyal employee for 20 years? It's a bit like, being in a contract for certain providers. Do they reward you the longer you stay? No, they don't.
Yeah.
So therefore, what do people starting to do? I'm going to go to an art school for 2 or 3 years, get a fatter contract, get a three grand golden hello. Yeah. It's like everybody I knew.
You'd be better at it, wouldn't it? The next time round, you'd say, actually, I am only going to... Your confidence will grow, won't it? And you'll say, I only want to do this job if I am allowed flexible learning, if I am allowed kind of PPA.
Which is me saying to you, should we be more cheeky? Should we be more demanding?
Well, the private sector wouldn't say that was cheeky. They would just say that's absolutely the correct thing to do. Why aren't you there? Why... Friends that I've got in the private sector can't believe that people aren't doing that.
Well, yes. I mean, but then part of me, I'm torn. I'm not usually like this. I am literally with one side of my brain saying, you know what, fine, this is the way it is. We're mugs. Just play the game. And the other side of me going, no, we're teachers. We're givers. We're altruistic. We help. We do things not because of the money. Come on. And I literally find myself. I don't know what everybody else feels about it. You're more welcome to let us know. And we've got Paul, who's got a good show coming up in 20 minutes. Paul, another good show coming up.
19 will be cut off.
19 will be cut off. 19 minutes. So Paul, the prof, TTR host himself, he says in Northern Ireland, look at pay and pyramids annually. So that's board of governors look at pay pyramids annually, which is good. And he also says, is there humour in the profession? Both humour as in fun in terms of perspective. No, there is gallows humour, and there's a lot of gallows humour in the profession, which is good. And yeah, you know what? Actually, there is. Because it is a fun job still. There are no days. There are moments, there are fleeting moments when the kids do something silly and you do something silly, and you just have to laugh. You just there are times you just go, what is this job? What is this job? And you can't describe it to people. And that's what makes it tolerable. That's what makes it the job that it is. That's what I think the guys who don't work in our profession don't understand is the solidarity, the comradeship, the fun, the banter. Working with young people, they're exceptional. But it's not fair. I don't think we've been treated right. And I think that we maybe have allowed it to happen as well, because we haven't been cheeky, because maybe we haven't spotted the change of the culture, that we are practically privatized, but we're still pretending we're public sector. And that's the thing. Maybe I'm still pretending I'm public sector, but I'm not. My boss is a CEO.
It's privatized.
And I was told, I was told a couple of months ago, and it's hilarious. I was told to be more corporate, and that didn't go down well. It was almost like the time I was told to be more subtle in my behaviour management. That didn't go down well, because I didn't come in to be an educator, to be more corporate. I got out of corporate. I worked for a large corporate 23 years ago, and I sat down with my dad and looked at my dad straight in the face and says, I'm not a company guy. I don't fancy making money for somebody else. I don't fancy being just another cog. I want to do something that's significant. I want to do something important in life. And he looked at me and says, look, son, there were 3 jobs that you could be in your life. 1 a politician, 2 a teacher, and 3 a lawyer. And I'm kind of nearly there with all 3 when I think about it.
And a defence midfielder for Liverpool, was that?
Defensive midfielder for Liverpool. No, I was always a attacking fullback. Never skillful enough to be a winger. but fast enough to be a winger.
Yeah.
But they always stuck out in the wing because they were small and quick. And I'm like, I don't have the dribbling skills cross of a winger, but I was also a bit ball greedy.
Do we know the difference between kind of the schools that are still LEA based and those that are kind of more gone down the MAP route or academy route? That is the retention difference in those schools? Are they able to like pull that data out or not?
Anecdotally, from what I know of people in the area, people stay in LEA schools more.
Yeah.
But that's from just friends who work in both. But here's the problem with local authority schools, and this is what's happening to my own daughter's school, and I'm not happy about it. But they're looking at academisation by the fact of the matter is that local authorities are defunded, local authorities are pulling their services, local authorities are in full retreat. They can't get in the services. So there's actually a health and safety issue now that they feel they may have to join an academy because academies have that economies of scale to be able to buy in the services. But as we're suggesting, I had to have a strongly worded letter to a private company that's now doing cleaning for us because on Monday morning I had to come in and clean my own classroom. And I sent a very strongly worded letter to the regional supervisor saying, I didn't want you to be cleaning my classroom. I didn't want your cleaning services to be privatised. I was perfectly happy with the cleaner who worked here for 20 years and cleaned my classroom and was amazing. So when you got your private contract, you promised us, I was on the governors at the time, that, and I think there's a massive scandal in that. I think that not just the PFI, I think there's a massive scandal in the companies now which provide food for schools. Don't get me started on the price of pens or glue sticks. I think we are being held over a barrel in the education sector. And the whole idea of academisation was meant to be the buying power of a trust would make things cheaper. We were promised that we became a trust that we would see the benefits, the land of milk and honey. We are working together in a large number of schools. That's going to lead to efficiency savings. That's going to lead to more economies of scale. It was like somebody was selling us Eskimo to snows. And I part of the time I thought to myself, okay, it makes some sense. You know, all right, you've a larger number of schools. Larger number of schools can buy in better services. Teachers can move between your trusts. And don't get me wrong, some trusts have been successful. And that, no disrespect, some have. And some have absolutely spectacularly failed. Absolutely. The amount of schools in debt and trusts in debt now indicates that either they can't control their budgets, they don't have enough money, or they have basically been tied into things like PFI contracts.
Well, obviously, we'll look at this next week, but what does happen there? These are now private businesses. They basically could go bust. What does that actually mean, though? Is it then the state has to then kick in, like we hear with all the other things like rail and water and everything else? As the state then have to kick in and bail it out?
We were told schools can't run. They're not meant to run deficits. The trusts will collapse.
Yeah, but we know that's not the case because we know that there are schools that are 30, 40 grand.
That's what we were told. Yeah. Again, that's a good show. There's a good show in that of what happens when a school is in debt. What happens to an educational trust that's in debt? I know that they have to go through a process of the refinancing, and the government does then come in and looks at the finances and puts a program together to say, let's get you back in the black. But the implications are for a trust that is in debt is that they don't recruit. They have to ask their existing staff to then make cuts in the sense of not redundancy cuts so far, but then that leads to role changes. That leads to people not getting promotions. That leads to then this cycle of, you know what, I'm going to leave this trust and I'm going to go to a trust that's got money. Yeah. So then what you're going to have is you apply business, you apply business principles. Yeah. I'm going to go to a school that's got more money, that can pay me more money, and then what happens to that school? And then you add in this. Would the school that's running out of money be in a more deprived area?
I would thought so.
Well, therefore, your school that's got more money be in a more affluent area. Yeah. So what is that going to do for social mobility? And
for the staff, we're starting on Maslow's hierarchy of
needs
as well.
What's going to happen to the morale of the staff in that area? And yet, here's the irony: is that the people in those areas probably need their education in school even more, the rescuing factor that is. But then you have staff who are leaving the profession because they can't afford, they are leaving the profession because they're just not getting, because they're asked to do roles outside their positions. All of this thing becomes with negative multiplier effect. It all goes in a downward spiral. And I think that's connected to social mobility and society issues. Again, if you wanted to design the worst case scenario for education, we are literally seeing money being misappropriated, money misspent, teachers not getting pay rises, schools in debt, schools crumbling, children mental health crisis, a recruitment problem, a retention problem. Oh dear God, add it all together.
So if you were, let's say you were in front of your head teacher now, or your head department, whatever,
Yeah.
and you were a younger Brent, a Gen Z Brent, yo dude, what would you negotiate now for yourself? What would you say now are things that looking back, thinking I should have made sure this was in place?
You know what? I'd like a sabbatical like they have in Australia.
Yeah.
I'd like my job held open for a year and me to be given a career break.
And I have seen that happen.
I'd like that. I'd like assurances that I will not be used to teach certain subjects. I'd like that. I would like a behaviour agreement that should children behave in a certain way, that I don't have to teach them. I would like that. I'd like more protection from the email culture, that certain parents email a certain time. I just basically want better conditions to my job, better protection, more support, clear structure of, if you work here for a couple of years, we will train you and here's the promotional prospects. I'd like a clearer path to, and more development, more opportunities to develop. And actually, I'd like more opportunity to teach possibly in other schools for a while. So within trusts, could I move to that other school within a trust for a while? I don't think they've managed. I can only speak from my own experience. I don't think I've been given the opportunities.
Yeah, I don't believe there's any opportunity open to us as well.
Nope.
When I was at Big Trust.
Yeah. And equally, I would like the times to be more flexible. I'd like to go to my daughter's. Sports day, like other dads do.
Yeah.
I'd like more time to be able to be flexible. And equally, I would want more appreciation from the government. Sounds weird to say it. I just like a thank you. I'm not saying a pat on the back, but I just like a bit of respect. A little bit of, you know what, thanks very much for the job. Stop the gaslighting.
But
Be honest.
I taught that about being in Glasgow, and even the person doing the kind of bus tour was talking so highly about teachers and education. Is it just a cultural thing? It's not a kind of necessarily a government thing. It's just something in England that we just don't do.
No, it's actually, if you look at globally, I like looking at the patterns around the world. There's definitely something happening globally with social media and education as well. America is a good example of that. We saw the other day a good story on that, where the children just demanded they have their mobile phone. The school said in America, you're not allowed your mobile phone out, and all the schools walked out. All the kids walked out. I'd be laughing at them going, you walked out of your own education. Fine, there's the door. Off you go. When you're ready to put your phone in, come on back in, because it's your future and your education.
Well, in that other country, this country, would just be a fine. I mean, if you just walked out.
Do you know what? I'm almost at the point where I'm saying, you don't want to get educated, you don't want your free education, fine. But when you're older, you can repeat your English. It sounds horrible to say it. I'm losing patience with people. I'm losing patience with people who get everything for free and then demand more. And you go, you know what? Actually, let's just put a price on that. Yeah. Put a price on my lesson.
Should there be like a minimal charge?
Put a price on my lesson. Put a price on the pen you borrow from me. Put a price on that textbook that you lost. Put a price, because that's the society we live in. But yet education is not like that. You think, well, okay, you want to be like that, be like that. Put a price. Say to a student, you know what? Your actions have made that staff member go home. You've caused my colleague to be sick. You and your parents are paying for the £150 supply cover because you have made my colleague go home. Then you'd see a massive change. No, you're not going on your holiday this year to Torremolinos because your child has caused vandalism in the school. Then you might see a change. It sounds horrible to say it. We are still giving away everything for free, demanding little back of it. I don't think we get a lot back. I think we do a lot, but we don't get a lot back. And that's, I think, where the relationship's been broken. The respect, the honesty, but even just this take culture. So I think a lot of us are tired of it.
So is there a kind of prescription style charge that we could charge for state education to just get some of that respect back, and then that money can be used to support?
There's a point, isn't it?
It's not like a massive fee, but it's like a minimal charge that everybody is.
But there's a weird thing. I think it's definitely the same with the NHS. I think you're right with the NHS. I don't think people appreciate they'll not appreciate. It's going to sound really prophetic to say this. I don't think people will appreciate what they have here until it's gone.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to appreciate the NHS till it's gone.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting close to it going. And I think there's a lot of people, and that's no disrespect, that's on the people of the country. That's democracy. That's on the people who vote. That's on the people who constantly harangue schools. You know what? You're doing it. You are literally undermining us, chipping away at us. You are driving people out of the teaching profession. And then when we come to say we're on strike, those that ring into the media and go, teachers having an inset day, teachers having 6 weeks holidays. Well, you know what? Fine. You teach your children, because I am done with teaching your children.
There also was a lot of people that supported.
Absolutely.
As well,
but they need to be more vociferous in the support. The local communities need to rally around their schools. They need to turn around to that teacher and say, I hear you're thinking of leaving this school. You don't leave this school. I want you to stay here and educate my child. I'm going to talk to your head teacher. What is it with, and that's the thing. If footballers were about to leave the club, and they were damn good footballers, would the fans turn around and go, or would they say, you know what, let's get on to the manager and find out what this player wants. Let's phone in with the manager and let's keep this guy here. Let's keep this girl here as well. So let's keep them here. And that doesn't happen. It's almost like the philosophy I think a lot of schools have run, and I think they're starting to realize now, has been, and we saw that with some schools, there was the supply coming in for a lot of years in teaching where you could go, you don't like it in this Academy Trust, here's our rules, we will replace you.
It happened recently, didn't that school in Cambridge?
School in Cambridge, and they can't do that. And that comes full circle with what the purpose of tonight was. The purpose of tonight was demand and supply. We hold a lot of the cards.
Yeah.
We've never held the cards in a way that we've held them. Are we going to use them, or are we going to hold on to them, or how are we going to use these cards that we've got? We've got leverage. Yeah. Sounds horrible to say it. We've got leverage in the teaching profession we've never had before, because basically we are demand and supply. There's a demand for our skill set at the moment, and there's a shortage of supply.
Yeah.
So therefore,
in the private sector, that'd be huge wage increases, wouldn't it?
It would lead to huge wage, and not just wage increases, it would be bonuses. Hey, look, the guys that caused austerity in the banks, guess what they're doing right now? They're back at their bonuses.
Of course, yeah.
They're back at their bonuses, but we're not back to our wage. So you say to yourself, well, hold on a second here. We didn't cause this austerity, but we're still paying for it. And the very people that caused it walked away, quids in, and are back making their bonuses. And you say to yourself, well, the country needs those people to create wealth. I get it, absolutely. The financial sector of London is hugely important. I get it. But at the same time, what's more important than the future generation?
Well, we know what's important because of COVID. The whole country was ground to a halt because schools were closed.
Well, wasn't that the irony? We were told how valuable we were then. We were told how valuable schools were, and we were given the platitudes. But when it comes to the actual brass tacks, we're in a... And I'm no disrespect to the government that's going to come in, I don't think they're going to change that culture. The cavalry ain't coming.
No.
They ain't coming. And I don't think any of the governments that will come in, regardless of their political allegiance, don't seem to have any sway in changing that culture. Yeah. And they're buying into this narrative, which means that I do not see it getting a lot better. No. Anyway, so next week, PFI. Thanks for your messages tonight. Thanks, Adam. We'll go. We'll have a sponsor. Paul's on the other side in a couple of minutes. Paul Hazard. He's got a couple of guests on. He's got a really good show as always. But our show today was brought to you by John Catt Educational, who publishes professional development books and resources who support great teaching and learning in schools here and around the world, and also to be found in my email inbox once a week. So please have you checked out their latest releases. Excellent amount of new releases all the time, keeping it fresh. You can also use our code, which is a perk, which is JCTTR2324. So it's JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. So please don't miss out on that. And visit johncattbookshop.com, and it's 2 T's on John Catt. They explore their full range and advance your CPD. Should you need to, because it's always a good idea to advance your CPD. So thanks very much for your message tonight. Thanks very much for listening. And hopefully, be a bit cheekier is my outlook on this. Maybe ask for that pay rise. Maybe ask for those extra conditions. Maybe chance your arm a little bit more, and maybe just push the boundaries of a little bit of, do you want me here? Yeah. Like knocking on the manager's door and saying, boss, I don't want to play centre midfield any longer. I don't want to play centre midfield any longer. I'd like to try my hand at, okay.
Yeah. Look at it this way. What would we say to our pupils if they were going for their first job? We would be advising them, wouldn't we, to go a little bit further, go push themselves, know their own value, be confident. That's what we.
That's a really good point.
What would you say to yourself? just before we go, 'cause we've got 30 seconds. If there is anybody that knows anybody that's been affected by the PFI news that broke in the week, please DM us. If you want to speak to us kind of confidentially, that's fine. We'll ensure that happens. If you just want to message us either through the Teachers Talk Radio team, or you want to kind of DM us, that'd be great, because we really like a kind of full perspective on that. But if you follow kind of Branwen Jones tweets, you'll see how kind of the fantastic work that she's doing, and I guess at some point that will be a much bigger story. So we're hoping to kind of jump on it now while it's kind of growing, really.
Well, I think it is one of those that's going to come with I think the story of where the money's going in education into private hands. And it's another one of those examples of the lack of accountability and, again, the transference of the money that should be going into the classroom, not going into the classroom, and not even just going to the classroom, going to the people in the classroom to keep them in the classroom. And I think that's where tonight was. So, yes, have yourself a good week if you are on your half term, and enjoy your half term like me if you're off on your half term next week. So,
have a nice week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.